So
Okay.
first, let me say welcome to everybody. We're very glad that you're here. Our seminar today really is getting out of Agile and finding true agility. Could you skip to the next slide, Cliff?
Sure.
So just to introduce our team, it's interesting, Cliff, myself, Marcel, and Monica are here with us today. We all have very distinctive backgrounds that really complement each other. My work has been in transformation. Cliff has authored 6 books and has a very strong foundation in technology and in IT. Marcel is an organizational psychologist, but also has done a lot of work in the area of complexity. And Monica is an expert in education, training, and delivery systems. She's worked with a lot of educational organizations over the course of her career. Next slide, please, Cliff. I think most of you know us through our book, Agile 2, which is doing very well on Amazon right now. Our book team was led by Cliff. We had 15 experienced people from many different areas on agility that spent many months working together to build the Agile 2 book, based upon looking at what isn't working well in Agile. And we base a lot of our ideas from the book and from the interaction that we've had with the organizations that we work with. Next slide, Cliff. And really what we want to talk about today is what is truly Agile and how to quickly leverage new developments. The world is transforming at an incredible pace. AI and other factors are really pushing the need for true agility. And so really in 2 different domains, we want to help organizations develop better leaders at all levels that promote truly agile behavior, and also individuals to become well-rounded leaders, not just coaches. Next slide, Cliff. So the outline for today is we're going to talk about the current trend. What is happening in Agile? Agile seems to be dying, but what's next? And how do we move forward? And specifically, we want to spend time looking at leadership, the kinds of leadership that are needed, and how to develop these needed forms of leadership in people. So Cliff, let me turn it back to you. Let me say, again, if people are joining, the chat is not able to work in this meeting. We're going to use the Q&A. Please feel free. We'll be monitoring that and using your thoughts and comments to direct the webinar that we have today. So take it away, Cliff.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. So, these 2 questions, if you could, type into the Q&A, not the chat, type into the Q&A, why this topic is important to you, and so when, it's important to understand that, if someone says Agile is dying, that doesn't mean the ideas are dying. A lot of the ideas in the Agile community are timeless, have been around for eons. A lot of those ideas were articulated very well by people in the Agile community. Things in the Agile manifesto, some of those ideas are really good. So those are not dying. What seems to be in decline is the Agile movement. And again, that doesn't mean that agility is not important. It's actually more important than ever. But, as a movement, as something that heads of organizations think about and pay attention to as kind of a solution to their problems, it seems to be in decline. There's a lot of evidence, and this presentation is not about making the case for that. But the premise of this presentation is that the movement is in decline as a movement, not the ideas. And given that, if you believe that, why is a discussion about that important to you and your organization at this time? What does that mean for you? If you could write into the Q&A some of your thoughts on that. We'd appreciate it. It would inform us. We might be able to talk to some of your concerns throughout the presentation. And also, related to that, what brought you to this particular talk? Why are you here? So anyway, if you'd rather sit back and have lunch, okay, someone actually wrote one. I'm not sure if other people can see it. A few people have written them. Interesting. So one is, it's important to me, it's losing its essence, basics are missing, deviation towards certification and fancy terms, values and principles are at stake. The real purpose is bringing people together, so kind of is, lost its way. And another person, my interest, the real power of Agile frameworks is uncovering dysfunction and not and then helping people to solve it. Many times those are skill gaps and leadership gaps and gaps in strategy. So, there's the point of view that frameworks actually help you in some ways. And incidentally, Agile too talks about the value of frameworks as a source of ideas. It doesn't say frameworks are bad. Not that Agile 2 is the answer either. It's just a set of ideas. We shouldn't view these writings as the answer or as definitive. They're just sets of ideas. Another person wrote, I'm in the webinar to know more about Agile 2 and its initiatives with vision and mission. Okay. All right. Well, that's very helpful to know what people are thinking. I think some of what we're going to talk about will address that. We won't specifically be addressing the last thing, but maybe in an upcoming webinar, we can talk about that. That is actually something we cover a lot in our training curriculum that we offer in the work that we do. Yeah, we do have a day job in this. We actually do help organizations to get better and helping to clarify vision and mission. We have helped organizations to define vision and mission and strategy. And so, from an agility, informed by agility. So we'd love to share what we have learned about that. Okay, so let's get going. So the impetus for today's talk was really this viral post. I think it's up to 2 million impressions now, and whatever that means in LinkedIn. I'm not really sure what impressions is, but in any case, this is not the first time someone has written like Agile's dead. The first time I saw that written was Dave Thomas, and one of the authors of the Agile Manifesto, about 6 years ago. He gave a talk, Agile is dead, but then he said in the talk, well, it's not really dead. What I mean is it's broken. So it's not the first time that people have said, oh, Agile's dead, but something has changed. This post, which was made late on a Friday night, exploded. It got reposted at this moment more than 200 times. So it triggered something, and this was about a month or 2 ago, 2 months ago. So something's changed, and we then asked. We looked at. So if you notice, there were hundreds of comments in this. Here, 552 comments. There actually ended up being like 700 or something. We went through them, which was a lot of work, and we tried to, it's hard because, reading a comment, people say things differently, but we tried to distill out the common threads, and we tabulated those. And this is what we got. At least this is the top 19. Well, yeah, this is actually the totality of what we got. And overwhelmingly, what people said, and this is unprompted, this was their own words, what people said was leadership style is the real problem. It's really about leadership. That's what the community told us. That's also what our research has shown, what all of our work has shown. And that's what we've been saying, and that's also what Agile 2 says. That's why there are all these principles in Agile 2 about what agility promoting leadership is like. So it was not a surprise, but it was very affirming that people said of their own initiative, in their own words, it's actually about leadership. And what does that mean? It's not helpful if that's a vague thing, like agile mindset. What does that mean? It's not helpful. It's too vague. It's not actionable. It doesn't convey any information. So leadership, we don't want to be vague about that either. And people were specific, and we tried to distill that. And they said, managers or people in leadership functions, people who have leadership is influence. And they need to be more outcome focused, less process focused. And the frameworks are kind of problematic because they kind of teach you to be process focused. And they teach you to be pro forma, check the boxes, which is kind of the opposite of what Agile is supposed to be about. Yeah, we did the stand-up check, and people who internalize truly Agile ideas know that. But these frameworks don't encourage that. They encourage the pro forma, check the boxes, because they're rules. So they're scripted things, and another thing we heard was that Agile is too simplistic. It's, a set of values is not enough to give people guidance on what to do. And the certifications came up as a huge problem area. The certification quagmire. Certifications don't really tell you what a person knows at all. So anyway, that's the results that we got from the hundreds of comments to that post. So something's changed, and people in the industry are basically saying it's broken. That's what they're saying. They're all saying it's broken. We need to listen. There was a post today from someone very prominent in the Agile community, I'm not going to mention, but basically he was in denial again. Yeah, everyone's saying it's broken, but it's not really broken. Yes, it is. It's broken. And so what do we do? And first we need to step back and ask ourselves, well, what are we trying to do? This is all about agility, right? There are other topics we could talk about, but Agile is about agility, allegedly. So what is agility? What is it? Okay, so I'm going to play a short video. This is a clip from a movie, but it's a movie, it's a true story. And this is about the tragedy during Hurricane Katrina in the US. This is just like a 2-minute clip. And this is what really happened in the hospital, where people were basically trapped in that hospital for 5 days and couldn't get out because they were surrounded by water that was 10 feet high and no one could get in. And the people in this video were sales managers. They had no operational role with regard to that hospital. Remember that. Let me see if I can, oh yeah. I have to turn the volume up so you can hear it.
Well, there's still not enough people on the ground to help everybody, not enough rescue workers, not enough police, certainly not enough people going door to door trying to find the people that are in there. So consequently, people that are making it.
That's on Memorial. I don't know, maybe they lost power. So the last email I got, fatigue, stress, anxiety, supplies are all issues now. We can't take it. Jesus.
The people inside the city of New Orleans are asking repeatedly today, the people in Washington, are you watching? Are you listening?
For several days now, many people have gone without food, water, and shelter. The residents of New Orleans are literally crying for help.
As you know, the Bush administration has been coming under increased fire from local officials in New Orleans and all across the nation. People unhappy that it is taking so long to get relief to refugees in New Orleans and other affected areas.
I think I might have found some helicopters that can evacuate the patients. They're here in Dallas. They won't be in New Orleans for hours.
Scrambling for rides.
We gotta get all the approval. They're not area approvals, just send. Memorial's not gonna know they're coming.
Just try anything you can to get them a message. They gotta hang on. They gotta hang on till those copters get there.
She didn't make it, and tens of thousands still stranded wonder if they will.
Pretty compelling. That showed real agility because those people were responding to the situation. Now, that was an extreme situation. They had to bypass rules and procedures and all kinds of things. That's not normal. And that's real agility is not chaos. It's not bypassing all the rules and everything. Real agility is doing what makes sense in the situation, being conscious of the passage of time and doing what makes sense in the situation, not waiting, not just following, okay, when's the next time we're going to reconsider this? Oh, that's 2 weeks from now. Okay, we'll discuss it then. No, you discuss it now. And then you might take action now or you might wait, but it's rational and it's dependent on the context and the situation. It's situational. It's not following a process. It's deciding moment to moment what is the most rational, effective thing to do. That's real agility. This is not real agility. I'm sorry for people who are fans of this. This is not real agility. Now, that's not to say that you can't use this and have agility. You absolutely can. But that's on you. That's on the leaders, meaning you and all the people exerting leadership. But these narratives, this is not the source of agility. Doing this and following this process does not give you agility. And there's a lot that is anti-patterns in this. So some evidence. What is real agility? Real agility is not following these frameworks and these processes. And we're going to get to what do you actually do? And what's where we're going to converge on is what good leadership looks like, that's agility promoting leadership, and how do you create that? That's where we're headed. So here's another video. So we're going to have another technical hiccup here at the end, but bear with us. This is an interview that I did of Dan Rasky. He worked at SpaceX for a year in a tech transfer program when SpaceX was developing the Dragon capsule, which has been ferrying astronauts to the space station for the last 2 years. He's an expert, world expert in heat shields.
And with all that going on, we had one standing meeting a week. One, okay, not 15, okay, at NASA. If we were working the same project, oh my God, we'd have a dozen standing meetings, and with maybe tens or hundreds of people in each of those meetings, and most people had to do with statusing, right? So most of the time you're sitting and listening, right? Because someone else is talking. And then you find that there's very little time for you to work on your own because you're going from one status meeting to another status meeting to another status meeting.
Yeah.
And so here at SpaceX, we have one standing meeting a week, 11 a.m. on a Wednesday. Okay, so it's in the middle of the week, so you can kind of status in the middle. And it was at 11 a.m. so that when 12 noon came along, everyone wanted to adjourn so we could go have lunch. Okay, and that was it. And that was enough.
That's interesting because, and by the way, we've looked at lots of more organizations than SpaceX, but they're an extreme case of extreme agility for a high technology product. And that's a very interesting case. And we also have been able to talk to people there up close because they don't have all kinds of barriers. They have no PR department. They don't, they're not set up. They won't answer your call, but they don't have barriers at the same time. So this is a very senior manager at SpaceX involved with software who reached out to me not about a month ago. And this is what he said in his own words. SpaceX has no agile people or project managers. We also don't use the word agile. We use the word ownership. Everything runs on the 5 rules. The 5 rules is referring to an Elon Musk paradigm for going back to first principles. I'm not going to dive into that. And then, he said, we only speak in terms of problems and ownership, names and dates. From a software perspective, I'd say we're 10 times more efficient than Capital One or Blizzard. in terms of developer happiness or output because of how we approach work. So they're not process focused. They don't have like, oh, we have to have this meeting every morning and we have to do this and then we have to do that. They don't have any of that. They don't have any process machinery telling them how to work or how to collaborate or how to decide things. Nothing. You don't need any of that. So what do? They use their brain, So agility arises from leadership style. Agility arises from leadership style. And the community told us that. It's not something we cooked up. It's something we knew, but the community basically recently validated that in a huge way. And the kinds of leadership, because we don't want the term to be ambiguous, the kinds of leadership that are needed are an outcome focus, not a process focus, not output, but outcomes. Is it going to work? Are we going to save the people at Memorial Hospital? And participative, not sitting in your office making all the decisions and then tossing them down. And being inclusive, being inquisitive, asking people what they think, respecting people's ideas and knowledge, helping them to generate answers, and being real time, not being cyclic, cadence-based, being in the moment, being sensitive to, is this very urgent or not? And why would we wait? If we know a better thing to do now, why would we wait? And having good judgment. Having good judgment is something you develop through experience, and some people just have good judgment. They're kind of born with it somehow. We don't really understand that, but it's true. But you can get better judgment as you develop experience. And also you have better judgment if you know how to collaborate better with other people, to get their ideas and to talk things through effectively and reach good decisions. Because decision-making is a process. It's not a moment in time. And agility emerges from these things. It's not something you create. You don't go and create agility. You create these behaviors and they give you agility. Google has a model for what they found experimentally were their most effective managers. A manager is just someone who is a leader who has some kind of explicit authority about something. You can be a deployment manager, you can be a manager of people, you can be, if you have explicit authority about something or some things, you're a manager, generally. That's generally the title. But effective managers are good leaders. And so this is really about leadership. And what Google found is that their most effective leaders had these traits. And if you look at the very bottom, you see is a strong decision maker. But if you look at number 2, you also see does not micromanage. Those are not in conflict. Those are not in conflict. Because good leaders know when to decide and when not to decide, and when to let others decide. Based on a huge body of work that exists about leadership, we created our own taxonomy by distilling that, because there are thousands of taxonomies of leadership. I'm talking about leadership style, names of leadership styles. There are widely researched models of leadership, like how does leadership work? But I'm talking about leadership styles, and there are lots of taxonomies of that. And so we created one that identified the behaviors that we found were very pertinent for high technology organizations getting stuff done. And we found that these styles of leadership were very important. It doesn't mean do this and this and this. It doesn't mean that. It just means that these styles of leadership, which can happen in many ways, tend to be important. And we're going to focus in very briefly on one of these, just one of these, which is the whole decision-making thing. Now here it says take charge, and that sounds like someone who's a jerk coming around saying, do this and do this. That's not what it means. It means just like those people at Memorial Hospital, they took charge in the situation to make something happen. They didn't boss anybody around. That's what this means. It means seeing a need and rising to take care of that need. That's what that means. And making the decision to do that and deciding what to do and then putting it in motion. That's what that means. So, having good judgment is about deciding the right thing, not making a bad decision, which is easier said than done. And decision-making is a process. It's not like, oh, let's see, I think we'll do this. No, it's thinking it through. And to think it through, you need to get other people's ideas because they probably have better ideas than you do. And especially if they're going to be the ones executing, you better get the idea. And ideally, you want them to really kind of come up with the idea in the best case. That's a more generative approach. People are more invested if it's their idea. And so, decision-making, which is a process, it's a collaborative process. Even if someone makes the final call, it's still a collaborative process generally. And it needs to be appropriately cognitively complex, depending on how complex the issue is. Then the decision-making needs to be situationally aware because the right decision in one situation might be very different from another situation. And it needs to be decisive in that you can't wait too long or the window of opportunity closes. And, so understanding decision-making processes is really helpful for improving how you make decisions. And so how do you help people make better decisions? Well, you have to start, well, you don't have to, but it's really helpful to start with understanding different approaches for making decisions, especially in groups of people. And there's a lot of research on that. This is not something, well, I've always made decisions this way. Let's look at other decision-making processes and try and understand it analytically. Step back and look at it scientifically. What does it take to make good decisions? There isn't just one way. And so understanding the different models and their strengths and weaknesses is really helpful. And then once you have that understanding, which is very cognitive, there's the emotional and self-awareness part. How do I tend to make decisions? Who do I tend to include when I make decisions? Do I just do it by myself or do I ask people? And then, how do I help others to make better decisions? And how do I observe people making decisions? And how do I observe outcomes? Do I even look at outcomes and try and connect the dots on when we decided and where that led? And what's my behavior when I do things? And what's my emotional component? Do I get too invested in my own idea? Am I about the right answer or about winning? Being self-aware is absolutely crucial. And understanding decision-making models is very helpful for being reflective and developing self-awareness about how you make decisions and how you help other people make decisions. So we talked about decision-making as a component of leadership, but there's much more to effective leadership than that. And for a highly agile, in a true sense, highly agile organization, you tend to need these types of leadership happening. Whether they're assigned roles or whatever, they need to be happening and happening synergistically. Decision-making is just one of them. And if you have those, agility emerges. So how do you help to develop better leadership? How do you improve your leadership? Well, this pyramid on the left is the knowledge pyramid. It's you can look that up. It's an established paradigm. And the progress of the knowledge pyramid is upward. You know, how you receive information by hearing and reading, and then you think that through and process it, and then you try it, and then through practice you get better, but then you reflect and you realize, you know, I'm not really doing that well. And then you hear what other people are doing, and over time you develop wisdom. That's the natural progress of learning. And in order to accelerate someone's progress in this kind of learning, you have to teach them, and you have to give them chances to practice, and you have to give them chances to discuss, and you have to give them chances to try it together, and you have to give them chances to reflect and to trade notes and say, how did that work for you? And you have to give them chances over time to reflect and, you know, how have I really been doing on this? And those are the kinds of things that are part of a developmental curriculum to actually help people become better leaders. Now, the ways you do the things on the right, there are different ways of doing these things. You know, coaching people, mentoring, instruction, group workshops. There are lots of different tools and techniques. These are the things that tend to be really helpful. And how do you help organizations to develop their people into better leaders? You know, basically, how do you help organizations to push people up this knowledge pyramid with regard to leadership? Well, you don't just give them a curriculum and say, here you go. Because every organization's different. You have to first learn about them. You have to ask questions, just like a good leader would. You have to go in inquisitively and tell us what you think your problems are. Tell us what you're trying to do. And what's the history of how you got to where you are? And what are your thoughts? What are your own ideas? And what do others in your organization think? Well, tell us what's happening. And then you have to work with them to figure out strategies for addressing those challenges and what role agility plays in those challenges. And part of the strategy almost always ends up being, how do we make better leaders? When you really peel the onion, it usually comes down to that. And if we're trying to move fast, and that's a problem we're trying to solve, how do we make more agile leaders, effective and agile, in a true sense, not in some framework sense, in a true sense? And to do that, you have to have real experts work directly with people. That's a key thing. Not do what some consulting companies do, which is use the big guns to make the sale and then bring in all their junior folks. That doesn't help even a tiny bit. It actually makes things worse. You have to have the truly knowledgeable people working with your people, helping them to become better leaders, and creating this kind of learning process within the organization, figuring out how to embed this within your organization. So this talk intentionally was not a sales pitch. We explained what we have learned actually works generally, in a general sense. Now, you know, our business is to help organizations. And so, you know, we do actually do this. You know, we actually follow exactly this approach because we think it's the right approach. And, you know, we have a term for what we do. We call it constructive agility, but it doesn't matter what we call it. And we have a toolkit that we developed. A huge part of that is a curriculum. There's built-in assessment and so on. So it's a very robust toolkit. There's a community of practice component and so on. But that's not what this talk has been about. This talk has been about how people actually can improve their leadership and how organizations can bring that about. Some upcoming webinars. I hope you've liked this one, and please don't leave yet because we're going to do Q&A, but also there's a survey, a very, very short survey we'd like you to take, and we don't want you to leave without seeing where you can find that, so that you can, if you want to, and we hope you do, fill out that little tiny survey. So these are some upcoming webinars that we'll be giving. We'll announce dates for these as we have them. And we'd also like to know if there's a particular topic that you would like to be covered. You can find this list on our website if you go to our website and then /public-webinar. And this is the link to the survey. And so I'm going to put that into, I don't know if we don't have chat, I don't know how to share that. Maybe if I answer it, I don't know. But anyway, make a screenshot of that if you want. I'm going to move on, and we're going to share that link again at the end. So any questions? And I wish I could open it up for, someone said there is chat, maybe it will work if you hear this thing. Someone said there is chat. Host and panel. It looks like the chat only works for the panelists. Let's see. Panelists can chat. Attendees can chat. Everyone. Here we go. All right. We now have chat. So if you enter in the Q&A or the chat, we'd love to answer any questions.
Cliff, I'm going to seed you with one comment that came up when we first started the webinar. Being agile is very important for my company because we are a fintech company, and we must easily seize opportunities, and we must decide project go or no go ASAP.
Yeah, it's, today time's important. That's actually one of the things that, the Agile community, frankly, has not appreciated, because, the Agile community, which I'm a member, we're all members of it. And I've been in the Agile community since in 2000, I was co-founder of a 200-person company called Digital Focus, and we adopted extreme programming in 2000. So I think that's enough credentials for being a member of the Agile community from the beginning. And, the Agile community, I feel, has not appreciated the importance of time, because in rejecting the iron triangle, time, budget, and features, rightly so, but you can't just fix that by throwing time away. Time matters, especially if you make a commitment to a customer. And what that tells us is be very careful about the commitments you make. Don't just commit everything. Everything's a commitment. No, that won't work. Be very selective about what you make a commitment about, and be somewhat general about it. Be capability focused. We commit that by this date, we're gonna do this. But be vague, be focused on the capability, not about the details of how you're going to do it, because you might change your mind on how you do it. And you might trim some things. But if you still create the capability, you've still made it. But time is important, there's always a window of opportunity. And so that, having a sense of urgency, not a sense of urgency where like the world's going to end all the time. No one wants to live like that, but just a realization that, yeah, time matters. And, time in the business is probably more important than profit.
We've got another question here. Do you see that as a tech community that we are in a particularly bad place, given that the Scrum folks have devalued leadership for so long?
Yeah, I do. If anyone follows some of my writing in LinkedIn, you probably know that I blame Scrum for a lot of dysfunction. I watched in horror as Scrum took over the Agile movement. I feel like it replaced it. Here are these people put together these 4 values that, well, it was missing some things like leadership for one, but the 4 values weren't bad and they were well-meaning. And then some of those people added the principles on. But then Scrum came along and said, oh, well, retroactively, Scrum is Agile. Well, no, it's not. Oh, but we were at the Agile meeting. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that your own framework is Agile, which you created a long time before. And in the most Agile situations I've been in, there was no process framework. Our example of SpaceX, they don't have a process framework. You don't need it. And in fact, it often gets in the way. And in the DevOps consulting I used to do, these rules and processes were often in the way. I had to get people to remove them in order to be able to make things more continuous and to shorten continuous delivery cycles. I had to get rid of the friggin' sprint boundary. So yeah, I feel that these process frameworks are counterproductive. It's not that they cannot work. You can make almost anything work, but they don't matter. They don't help you. They don't make you more agile. What makes you agile is the way you behave with others, the way you work with people, the way you make decisions. Those are the things that make you agile. These process frameworks are absolutely irrelevant at best, and at worst, they're in the way.
Cliff, Alejandro Salcido is asking a question on the Q&A.
Okay, well, thanks, Alejandro. It says, by the way, I gave a talk in Madrid not too long ago, and I tried to give part of it in Spanish. It was not so great, but people were very, very nice about it. I gave the intro in Spanish, but then I did the rest in English. Anyway, I'm trying to improve my Spanish. So in our company, we've been implementing Scrum adapted for years, but we've always had a discussion of Agile means developing more quickly. Maybe. I think it's more the sense of reacting to change. Absolutely. And the frameworks often go against reacting to circumstances. What do you think? Absolutely. Because these frameworks are all cadence-based. And why would you wait? And my favorite example is the retrospective. Having a retrospective at the end of some difficult iteration when everybody's wiped out because they committed to completing a certain amount of stuff, and then they don't want to sit around, they want to go home. And having a retrospective, then they don't remember their good ideas anymore, and they don't care anymore. It's maybe, maybe if you have the retro Monday morning when they're all refreshed, they might they might remember some things, but they'll probably have forgotten what they thought of a week ago. The time to capture an idea is the moment it's spoken, and, if people are busy and you don't have time to talk it through at that time, that's fine. But then your response shouldn't be, bring that up in the retro. Because you know what? By the time they get to the retro, they won't care anymore. The inspiration's gone. It's dead. What you should say is, that's a great idea. We got to finish this today, but do you have time tomorrow morning? And let's bring Susan and Joe into that. Let's see what they think. That's a great idea. Hold that thought and capture the energy. Capture the energy at the moment where it exists and let that energy ignite. Not have this calendar scheduled innovation session, which is what a retro is, scheduled innovation. It amazes me how anyone could think that that would be effective. So I agree with you that, it has to be in the moment. It's any process where you have to wait, that's a waste. It's a lean waste. And these cyclic processes are antithetical to agility.
If we've got another question, who compromises an Agile 2 team, and what are the ceremonies that are helpful? Who attends? How long is it, etc.? Is it timely enough to share of the moment issues to have a single meeting?
Well, there is no such. Oh, okay. I see the question. So there are no, Agile 2 is not a framework or a process. There are no Agile 2 ceremonies. Agile 2 is like the Agile Manifesto in that it's a set of behavioral ideas. It doesn't tell you what to do. And let me give you an example. So some time ago, and this is just an example, I can describe lots of different types. I've been in a lot of teams and worked with a lot of teams in my career. I've been an electrical engineer, a nuclear engineer, and a software engineer. I've been on lots of teams. I founded a company that was very successful in the late 90s. And I've helped a lot of companies build things and solve problems since then. And I've also been on teams. In 2014, I decided to actually join a team again as just a member in order to immerse myself in the world of DevOps. And I've learned Ruby and Gradle and Groovy and all kinds. AWS and a Cucumber and all kinds. So immersed myself in the doing again, and that was one of the best decisions I ever made. So, and so I was on Agile teams in the course of that as a team member, not as a team lead. So it's fresh in my mind. And so an example, imagine that you have a team, and I'm going to say a team. Usually there's more than one team. Usually most products today have lots of teams, but let's just say there's a team and the team is starting to work on something. It's like day one. And so Scrum would say, oh, well, define these roles. There's a product owner who's a product owner, and you're all team members, and when's the sprint end, and create the backlog. Scrum tells you to do all the things. So I wouldn't say do any of those things. I would say, first, what are we trying to achieve? I would hold a discussion with the people. And I'd make sure all the stakeholders were there too. Say, what are we trying to achieve? And I would probably sketch out, I'd elicit from them, what are kind of some critical path ideas? Not like locked down, written in stone, but just ideas. What do you think the critical path is for getting to what we're trying to achieve right now? And what are some milestones along the way that would represent achievement? Kind of proof of success, proof that we're on the right path. What are some of those things? And then I'd help them ideate, and by then we're probably out of time, they're probably tired, and we resume the next morning or something. But over time, I get them to think, well, what should we be doing now? And what are the best ways of doing that? You know, that's how I would start. I wouldn't start with any roles or any kind of ceremonies or anything. I would start with problem solving. That's what I would do. And that's what I have done throughout my career, and it works.
If we have another comment here regarding the retro, the best retro is done first online when people have time to think about their answers before putting them down, and the actual meeting is to discuss those.
I kind of like that because, you know, if they have to write their answers down, you know, they have time to remember, you know, because if you ask people in a meeting, what ideas do you have? They probably won't remember them, you know, but over the next day, they will remember. Like how often have someone said, what was the name of that thing? And say, oh God, I forget. And then later on, you're driving in the car and suddenly it pops in your head. Oh yeah, I have to tell them that's what that was. You know, and so over the course of a day, you probably will remember some of your ideas, not all of them. And then you can write them down. But I should caution that some people absolutely hate writing stuff. You know, so on the other hand, some people hate talking in a group. Really. And that, you know, people who like talking in a group don't appreciate that. Think, why would someone not like to talk in a group? What's wrong with them? You know, like there's something wrong with them. You know, people are different. You know, some people don't like talking in a group, and some people don't like reading stuff. You know, and so whenever you ask people to do things in a certain way, you're immediately filtering. You know, so if you're going to say everybody write your idea down, that will work for those writers. It won't work for the talkers. You then need to figure out, well, who are the talkers? I better give them a chance too. Well, they like open spaces. Let's create a little open space, you know, give them a chance. And then all the writers will basically retreat to the corner during the open space. But then the leader needs to be able to stitch that together and get those people to talk to each other or write to each other, or at least state their ideas for them or something. I've done all of that. You know, so a leader needs to be a good orchestrator of collaboration to knit together the different ways that people express their thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Cliff. As we get close to the end time here, I want to remind everybody, I put a link to the survey in the chat. If you have a minute or two that you can take to complete this. And also, we'll use these to help develop some of the future webinars that we'll be having. If you'd like to reach out to us directly and find out more about our constructive agility system, you can reach us here. And if you're interested in our constructive agility system, we'd be happy to set up a separate meeting to show you what you and your team members, what that's all about.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.